What's up guys, this is Kel, Red Zone Rogue, and today I have another Force of Will strategy video. Keep in mind that this is not a deck tech, but is instead a video highlighting a cool or fun strategy, so you can take the info here and create your own dank brews. But in case you don't care about that, I've also included a sample deck list in the description, as always. So today's strategy is going to be going over the Lumia Lapis Nidhogg Flicker Value strategy, what I like to call Dragon Blink. Alright, so to first understand the strategy, we must understand the cards. It's pretty obvious. So the key linchpin of the deck is Lumia, obviously. She is the ruler. And it is the ruler side of the card which does a lot of the work, at least for this specific combo for the strategy that we're going to be talking about today. So the most important part of her text is what's at the very bottom right here, and it says, at the end of your turn, remove target rested resonator you control from the game, then put it into its owner's field. That is incredibly relevant, so let's go over to the next one. So the Space-Time Pursuer Gill Lapis is a shift card. This is the side that we care about the most. This side's also really good. It lets you search your deck for a 12 Apostles Resonator, much like Nidhogg is, as well as another one in the deck. But that's good. Lets you search your deck for consistency, but this is the side that we really care about. So what this side does is, you can see its stats right here. It costs 2 and 2 fire. It is a 1000/1000. It has target attack. That's not super relevant. But when it enters the battlefield, or when it comes into play, or shifts, you can choose one. You may pay 0 to play shift abilities of target, blah, blah, blah. You don't care about that. What you do care about is you can put a 12 Apostles card from your hand into play, and it gains swiftness, and then remove it from the game at the end of turn. And the final piece of the puzzle is the new card, Dimension Dragon Nidhogg. It is a 1200 flying 12 Apostles dragon for 3 and 3 darkness. None of that really matters except for the 1200 and the flying bit. What really matters is that he's a 12 Apostles, and when he enters your field, remove all Resonators your opponent controls with the total cost, or with the lowest total cost among Resonators your opponent controls from the game. And that's all of them if they all share cost. So say they have like 3 1-cost dudes, they all die. They all get removed from the game, and that is super relevant. It's good that it's not based on power or defense, attack or defense. It's good that it's based on the cost. Alright, so the strategy here is actually really simple. With these 2 cards in your hand, you play the Space-Time Pursuer Gill Lapis with the red side face up. When he enters the field, you can put a 12 Apostles from your hand onto the field as well. You choose Nidhogg. His ability triggers. All your opponent's Resonators with the lowest cost get removed from the game. He now has Swiftness from Gill Lapis' ability. You attack for 1200, and then at the end of your turn, Lumia's ability will trigger, removing him from the game, putting him back into play, and then removing all of the Resonators with the lowest attack again. There is one quick thing to note on the Gill Lapis card. There is a clause at the very end of his ability that says, remove from the game at end of turn. That it being, of course, the 12 Apostle that you put into play. However, if you use Lumia's ability and you stack your triggers correctly, assuming every single time you would, then Nidhogg will not die. He will remain in play. Basically what you do is you put Gill Lapis' ability on the chase first, followed by Lumia's ability. So Lumia's ability will go off first, removing Nidhogg from the game. He comes back into play. His ability will then trigger. And then Gill Lapis' ability will trigger. It was really hard saying that without using Magic the Gathering terms, by the way. But basically what that means is Nidhogg is then treated as a new Resonator, and therefore will not be affected by this remove from the game permanently trigger. Alright, so there are several different ways that you can actually build your deck around this combo. You can go like a hard control route using darkness and discard, or maybe wind and counters, but I've chosen to go the aggro route. Alright, the first couple cards I chose for this are pretty simple. They're not entirely aggro specific cards. Guinevere and Rukh Egg, you've probably seen way too much of already, but they're just too good not to have in the deck. Guinevere letting you banish a Resonator, Rukh Egg, and then, Rukh Egg will trigger. You can go search for a fire Resonator, you can draw 2 cards, and then discard a card. It's like a 3-for-1, and it's crazy good. It's crazy. It's lots of value, and it'll keep your hand full. Fairy of Reccurance is kind of a unique thing for this deck. I'm sure other people are using it, but I think it's actually pretty good. You can use it to banish with Guinevere, and it has this on-enter ability. If you did not know, when it enters your field, you can search your deck for another card named Fairy of Reccurance and put it in your hand. So you can sack a Fairy of Reccurance, go search for whatever else, or maybe another Fairy of Recurrence. When it comes into play, get another Fairy of Recurrence, etc. Also, Fairy of Recurrence even works really well with Lumia's Flicker ability, so you can, flicker it at the end of turn, have it come back into play, search for another one. It's a pretty good card, and I like the sustainability and reusability of it. Also has flying, which is also relevant. Alright, next up we have Lancelot, the Knight of Mad Demon, and Athena, Titan of Revenge. I think these are two of the best aggro cards in the entire game. Lancelot is pretty obvious, he's just crazy good 2-drop, and I love Athena. Athena is awesome, and she's a 12 Apostle, so you can put her into play with Lapis's ability, and search her up with Lapis's other side enter ability. I really like having Athena over just some random other 12 Apostle that you might not be able to play, because you can hard cast her as well as free cast her, I guess, from Gill Lapis. Nyarlathotep, the Crimson Radiance, is a pretty obvious choice for a Lumia deck, but I think she's a pretty good card regardless of that. The first ability, her Light Awakening ability, lets you remove a target Resonator from the game, and then it comes back into play when she is removed from the game. However, that can really clear the way, getting rid of a giant blocker from your opponent, or maybe letting you flicker something. Maybe flicker Gill Lapis again, or Nidhogg again. There's a lot of versatility in this card. I think this card is really good. Not to mention the free spell that you get to play if you use the Awakening cost, which is also good. There are some Chants in this deck. Several of them cost more than one, so that's relevant. I think it's a good card. Alright, so these are the only 3 Chants that I picked up for this deck. I really like them. They're really good burn spells. You can use them as removal, or you can just dome your opponent out, which, hopefully is the case. Lightning Strike is pretty obvious, one of the most efficient cards in the game. Crimson Ray is excellent as well. Quick cast, 600 damage to basically any target, and you gain 600 life, also relevant. And Blood Boil is a good card, unique to Lumia, because its abilities read: this card deals 600 damage to your opponent. Your opponent cannot gain life until end of turn, which is also relevant if you're trying to dome out your opponent. Or, target Resonator you control gets plus 800 until end of turn. At the end of the turn, destroy that Resonator. So you can flicker the Resonator similar to how you would flicker Nidhogg to make sure it doesn't die to Gill Lapis, and it won't die. So, yeah, sweet. Alright, next up, we have some situational cards with Glorious the Silver Knight and Bedivere the Restorer of Souls. Bedivere the Restorer of Souls is basically one of the best large Resonator removers in the entire game, and the fact that you can flicker him with Lumia is excellent. By the way, flicker just means remove from the game, have it come back into play. It's a magic term if you're new to that. Just figured I'd let you know, so I just didn't assume that you knew what flicker meant. Anyway, yes, you can do that. He only kills dudes with 1,000 or more attack, but he is really good, and there's a lot of stuff going around with 1,000 or more attack these days with all the chimeras from Lilia's Petal, as well as good old Captain Hook. There's also Glorious right here, and Glorious is equally as good. She has Quick Cast, which is excellent, and she can destroy a J Resonator that dealt damage this turn, and also, pump up for 200 and gain first strike. The fact that she can destroy a J Resonator is excellent, but the fact that it has to deal damage is not as good. Still really good, but situational, I would say. Next up, we have a couple more controlling situational cards. I like Zero's Familiar. 500 flying for 2 isn't too bad, and giving Lumia Barrier is excellent if you're having trouble keeping her alive, even though she will have Imperishable if you use Nyarlathotep with her Enter ability. Still having Barrier is quite good, so, I think the Owl is pretty good. And then Tsukiyomi Noble, I was going to call it Oracle of Tsukiyomi. Tsukiyomi Noble is also very, very good, as it just straight up locks your opponent out of using Resonator activated abilities. Players cannot play activated abilities of Resonators they control unless they control a moon, and it itself is a myth/moon, so you can use your own activated abilities. Alright, and last but certainly not least, we have Barrier Seal. Now, I think this is strictly a sideboard only card, but it is incredibly good against some of the most popular decks in the meta, namely Lilia's Petal, the Nine-Tailed Fox, bane of the meta. He's really good. I actually like him a lot, but this card kind of hoses him over. What it does, it is an addition, as you can see, 1 fire and 1 light. And when it enters your field, remove all cards and all graveyards from the game. And if a card would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, remove from the game instead. That means your Lilia's opponent cannot recur his Killing Stones, which is excellent, as well as making it a little bit difficult for him to do other things. Also, this card randomly hosts over Rogue Reanimator decks, which I guess is cool. Alright, so there you have it, guys. That is my Lumia, Gill, Lapis, Nidhogg, Flicker, Value, Wombo, Combo, Aggro deck. I like this deck. I think it's a lot of fun. I don't think it's going to be, you know, top 8ing any ARGs anytime soon, but I think it's a really fun deck that you can take and play with your friends. It's powerful, for sure powerful. If you get this combo out, then your opponent's going to have a really hard time winning if they don't deal with it immediately. Lumia by herself is a really cool card, and I think this deck will get a lot stronger once she gets more support later in the cluster. Also, her imperishableness and the ability to gain life when she deals damage on her J-Ruler side should definitely not be overlooked if you're getting rushed down. You can gain a lot of that life back. Alright guys, so I hope you liked the video, and I hope you go out and brew your own dank builds. This is just mine. I kind of put an aggro shell around it because, you know, I want to play some aggro. But you can, yeah, definitely put a control shell around it and be similarly good. Also, you could use other 12 Apostles. You can use that 1500 beast that, like, deals damage to your opponent whenever it deals damage to a Resonator. Anyway, if you liked the video, then maybe leave a like, maybe even subscribe. I do have at least one more Force of Will strategy video for the current cluster coming up, as well as more Force of Will videos, obviously, in the future. So if you guys liked the video, then maybe leave a like, maybe even subscribe. Every little bit helps, and I appreciate it so much. I love this game, and I want it to grow bigger. I want more people to see the sweet strategies you can do in the game, and any exposure I can get, you know, is more than appreciated. Regardless of what you do, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you guys next time.